In this episode, we get my $2,500 foiling Moth back out on the water and fit a super small hydrofoil to see if it'll go any faster. Right, so back to normal programming for a bit. So the roamer's gone outside. I've still got a few jobs to do on that. I'm going to keep sailing that in the background. But it is only 3 months until the Moth Nationals are on, just down the road from my house. So I better actually learn how to sail the thing, as best I can anyway. I've just got a lot of little jobs to do on this boat. Obviously I put it together right after I got it, sailed it a few times. Now I just want to work through it, make it easier to use, make sure it's got the reliability for the Nationals. That's like 4 or 5 days of sailing in a row. There's so much going on in our fleet of old foiling Moths, sort of locally. A lot of people buying boats in from Sydney and stuff, so I really got to sort of up my game because all my friends are going to catch me and overtake me. So yeah, got to get back into it. So ever since I got this boat, it's had a bit of a wobbly wing. It does look like it's had some repair work before, and before we go into the season, I thought I should just take the trampoline off and pull it all apart just to check it's not actually damaged. Luckily on the Mach 2 that's not very hard to do, just undid the lashing and the zip, and yeah, I was able to pretty quickly get it all apart and inspect it. So it just looks like the socket and everything's in perfect condition. It's just a little bit wobbly where it's been repaired or reinforced in the past. So I just put some tape on it just to take some of the slop out of it, because it was a little bit scary when it kind of wobbles around. So we're back on the Moth tonight. Cam's here with his. He's just re-roped and re-rigged the entire thing. And I'm just putting my boat back together after I fixed up that wing bar that you saw the other day. I'm going to change my horizontal foil, which we'll look at soon. We're both just trying to get our boats on the water so we can start practicing for the Nationals in a few weeks. Apparently there's a Mach 2 division there, so we're going to be all battling each other for the Mach 2 trophy. We're not going to win because there are people who can actually sail these. Yeah, let's get into it. So this was a cool little trick I picked up on looking at the footage from the last Moth Worlds. I saw someone had a deck grip around their ride height adjuster, and I thought I'd try that because it means I can run less wraps, and it also increases the diameter and makes it easier to turn, I think. So I thought I'll give that a go just to see if it makes it a bit easier to operate. So while I'm just starting to pull this foil apart, if you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, please do. It makes such a difference as to how many people can find this channel and how quickly we can grow sailing. So this is the Mach 2.3 high lift I was running. As you've seen in previous videos, it's really hard to go over 25 knots, and at 27 it sort of definitely hits a wall. And then this is a Masita that has been modified. So it's basically, that's a stock Masita, which has got the old droopy tips. This one's been cut down, and you can see here the flap range on this one is quite limited. But the flap range on this one is massive. And it's got quite a creative hinge here that goes all the way to the end. You can see, basically this foil came with that modified Mach 2 that was in the backyard, and my friend John kindly let me have it for my logistical juggling for him. And as you can see, it is massively smaller, and that is a heap of area in percentage terms. So I'm excited to see how this one goes. It's going to be harder to take off, but it should definitely open up my top end a bit, and yeah, we'll see what happens. So while I was hammering on my new foil, Cam was putting a new Cunningham in his system. Basically you can just go on the Mach 2 website and have a look at all the resources they have there, and then just copy whatever the latest state-of-the-art system is. So Cam ended up with his Cunningham on the deck, which is super aerodynamic and just really cool. I was talking to AMAC and he mentioned that I should never be getting maximum bow down on my rudder, so I thought I should check my gantry angle, because I was actually at maximum bow down quite a lot of the time. Even though this boat was the third best Moth in the world at the 2019-2020 World Championships, it's possible that these kind of things could have changed over time, or the rudder I put on is just set up differently. In the end I was able to add about 2 degrees of extra lift to the rudder, which made a big difference when I went sailing a bit later on. So a critical thing to get right on the Moth is the angle of attack, so basically the angle of the horizontal foil relative to the water. I believe it needs to be between about 0.8 and 2 degrees depending on which foil you use. When I put this one in, it was closer to 8 degrees, so I had a lot of work to do to fix it. So then I pulled everything apart that I'd just done a couple of days previously, and cut up some bits of backing card and inserted those into the join between the foil and the vertical. Then I realised that when I adapted this foil to suit the $100 Moth, I'd actually changed the forward rake of the foil, which might have explained those weird sort of ventilation issues I've been having at high speed. So then I was basically able to drill out the factory holes in a slightly different place and get this vertical back in the boat at about 4.8 degrees of forward rake to stop bubbles going down it. I then got the angle of attack on the horizontal close to about 1.8 degrees, which was what I was targeting. And then it was time to head down to Port Melbourne Yacht Club, where there was a beautiful northerly blowing, relatively flat water and really easy launching. We rocked up, paid our $10 visitor fee, grabbed some essentials and then had to look at the course. I have to say the club was incredibly welcoming and they made everything so easy for us. Right, here we go, Port Melbourne Yacht Club. We've got really nice northerly. Glad we came here. Got to get out there because we're running out of time, so just have to beat my brother to goal. So Port Melbourne was really easy to launch from because it gets deep pretty quick and the wind was at the right angle to the beach. In a second you'll see a boat with white sails appear over my shoulder. That's a jolly boat, a 3-man boat designed by Alpha Fox that's still sailed in big numbers at Port Melbourne. The Jolly Boat website says that no single hull dinghy has ever exceeded the time speed of a jolly boat over a measured distance since Charles Curry did 5 cables at a speed of 13.4 knots in 1954. So if you keep in mind that my takeoff speed on that high lift foil is normally about 8.8 to 9 knots, it's incredible to think that this foil doesn't get out of the water till it's doing between 12 and 14, depending on the wind and wave angle. Although it is really hard to get foiling, and it's really sensitive to rudder angle and just how much pace you can keep on, it did feel really good once you were powered up and going upwind. A little bit like it kind of gave a little bit when the breeze hit instead of sort of fighting you. So here I'm just really flattening out the rig, getting the Cunningham on. It makes a massive difference to flatten out these rigs and get rid of the drag once you're going. Just settles the whole thing right down. And here I thought I'd actually made the right decision in changing foils. What is that? Dolphin! Wow! That's the Enterprise behind us, the tall ship. I could, however, tell that my settings were a little bit all over the place with this foil, and I thought I'll just go downwind conservatively towards the start. You can't really see it in the videos, but the gusts were relatively big, and sailing around the rest of the bay had pretty much been cancelled. It was here I found out why AMAC told me that I was going to struggle on that foil. So here I'm doing 11 knots of boat speed. Normally I'd be well clear of the water and just gone. But instead I spend ages just trying to get the thing out of the water like an overloaded 747 going down a runway with a tailwind. So now it's finally up and going. You can see I have to make big adjustments to the rake of the rudder by turning the tiller extension. That's a little bit like how in an aeroplane you pull back and forward on the controls to go up and down. On the Moth you're just kind of constantly adjusting a turn or two here and there just to keep the pitch right so the wand on the bow can do its job. I then had to jibe really quickly to get away from the beach. As you can see, as soon as I started to go for the jibe, I went below my takeoff speed. I was straight back in the water where I started. So off camera here I changed some settings, increasing my ride height to try and make the boat take off a little bit earlier and fly a bit higher. As you can see, doing 13 knots through the water instead of over it is a bit of a wild and wet ride. Unfortunately, as soon as the boat took off, I realised I'd turned up the ride height too far and I didn't have much control at all. Yeah, I'm good. I then saw my brother went past behind me, so I thought I'll throw in a quick tack, pop up on the foils, and then roll straight past him. Whilst I did get the tack done, unfortunately the popping up on the foils bit just didn't really happen. So I think here is an excellent example of just how sensitive this foil is. As you can see, I got a little bit bowed down, just clipped the top of a wave, washed off the speed, and then suddenly I didn't have enough lift to fly anymore, and the apparent wind comes well aft and I had to round up and bail out of the whole thing. So by this point I decided that the small foil really wasn't for me. I thought I'll just drop the bow and then roll through this fleet of 35 to 40 foot racing yachts that were coming up to their top mark, show them what $2,500 moth sailing looks like in case they might want one, and then I'll look like a legend and I can just go back to the beach. I then learnt an interesting lesson about what happens when you have so much wing loading on such a small foil and it clips the surface and ventilates. On the way in, this super modified Adams 10 went past. I just thought it was so cool to see such a long, sleek boat just powering its way upwind. It just looked so good, covering a lot of ground. Remember, if you haven't signed up to the Patreon yet and you're in a position to help, please do. A massive thanks to all those people that continue to support the channel financially. It's really appreciated. Unfortunately, the rod that controlled the rudder rake in my brother's tiller broke, so he came in shortly after me. We went up to the yacht club and had some delicious dim sims, watching the keelboats come past and a guy on an RS Aero fly around in like 25 to 30 knots. So, wasn't the best day, wasn't the worst, but I learnt a valuable lesson about small foils. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.